Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day and above all else that you're indeed looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the topic of another wonderful episode that we're going to bring to you, I want to welcome back to the channel Mr. Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
I'm doing very well, Armando. Happy to be here. How are you today?
Oh, doing well, doing well. Fantastic weather here. And the one and only Mr. Ken Cheshire. How's it going, Ken?
Going well, Armando. Good to see you guys again.
Good to see you too. Good to be seen by you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have another Ranking the Albums episode to bring to you. And the band in question that we're going to be talking about today is a band from the UK. The band is Talk Talk. Now, my history with Talk Talk is quite limited. They have five albums that have been released. And I'm just gonna give you a bit of a history of the band. The band was formed in London in 1981. They signed to EMI Records, otherwise Parlophone Records, in 82. They released their debut album, The Party's Over. Again, they have released five albums to date from 1982 to 1991. They moved from EMI to Polydor Records. They got into a disagreement in terms of their musical direction with EMI. And in 1990, they signed to Polydor Records. They released their last album called Laughingstock in 1991 before disbanding. According to the notes I have, they've sold over 1 million albums worldwide. In the band, you had Mark Hollis on vocals, guitars, piano, various instruments, Lee Harris on drums, Paul Webb on bass. Paul Webb, in terms of band members, was with the band for a fairly good amount of time. The band also had on the debut album, excuse me, Simon Brenner on keyboards. But as I said, over the releases of the albums, band members would leave. Simon Brenner would be the first one to leave. Uh, Paul Webb and Lee Harris would remain with the band up until the release of Laughingstock, which would have Mark Hollis and Lee Harris as the two main members of the band, and they would have guest musicians come in. Now, unfortunately, we've lost Mark Hollis in 2019 due to cancer. And in terms of the band, in terms of their musical style, they started out as a synth pop band using electronic drums, keyboard, very keyboard heavily oriented. But over the release of their albums, they basically went from synth pop into, I would say, avant pop. Avant pop. Sorry, one coffee and I'm screwed up today, guys. More ambient kind of music, very atmospheric, mood oriented, very moody kind of music. And that brought them to odds with EMI Parlophone, whereby again they left. Lawsuits, counter lawsuits were filed over the parting with EMI. And then again, they would eventually sign with Polydor. And I was reading up on this a couple of days ago, and one of the reps at Polydor had stated that when they went to a listening party for Laughingstock, he was known to he was quoted as saying, "How the hell are we going to market this?" Right? So they've had quite the history. Okay. Mark Hollis, as a solo artist, did release one album, I do believe in 1998, but he quietly retired from the music business after that. So we have our rankings all put in order here, and this is going to be quite the list here. But being the host, I will gladly and graciously let my two co-hosts go first, and I will go in last. So, who shall I pick on first?
I think you
Yeah.
should pick Ken because Ken is of the three of us, I think he has the more authoritative views and he's been immersed in the band the longest.
Okay, I would agree. Okay, so we're gonna go Ken, Jim, and myself. So Ken,
Okay, so we're going to start with number five.
yes.
My number five is number five, Laughing Stock from 1991. Their final album. This, as Armando just mentioned, goes way into the ambient experimental stuff. And it's just a bit too avant-garde and ambient for me. Um, we talk a lot about space in music, and that's usually a good thing, but it's a little bit too spacey here. Um, for this album in particular, um, and the one preceding it, they it came about with some improvisations in the studio, and some of the songs were put together um, with snippets of pieces, not songs played all the way through. Um, and there are some good little bits and snippets throughout this album, but they don't really go anywhere for me. Um, those little bits of niceness are great to the ear, but it's not sustained. So, but this album is widely loved. One of our friends over on X did a poll yesterday um, on polling which is your favorite Talk Talk album, and it included albums 2 through 5, and yeah, this got a heck of a lot of votes as people's favorite Talk Talk album. It's just not mine. And so a little bit too far out there for me. So my number five is Laughing Stock.
Yeah, and I'll just say, in listening to the albums, um, it was a challenge to get as much as I like some ambient music. It was a challenge, but that's all I'm gonna say at this point. Uh, Jim,
It's hard to know. Okay, my number five is their debut album, The Party's Over from 1982. And it's just hang on there, Mr. Cheshire. The point I want to make is that it's very interesting how people approach Talk Talk because it's such a radical disparity over, a 9 year period from where they started with The Party's Over all the way to Laughing Stock. I actually went and did a ranking on all these albums to try to bring some objectivity to it. And I listened to The Party's Over for all the way through for the first time in years. Obviously, I was aware of the song Talk Talk. Um, and I gave the album a really solid 8 out of 10. I mean, it's a really, really good album. To me, the strongest tracks on here, Talk Talk, The Party's Over, Have You Heard the News, are just really great, engaging pieces of writing and performing. They really hold my interest as a listener. So like strong 5 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5 on those. There are some songs on this album to me that dip to like the 3.5 out of 5, but that's still solid. There's nothing on here that's a clunker. um, it's I guess for me the issue with this album is that it's from a production standpoint, it's clearly an album of its time. It is very, very 1982. Just like how we've discussed, like No Jacket Required is very, very 1985. Um, but from in terms of like song, as I said, songwriting, performance, what's happening melodically and harmonically, there's a lot to like about this record. um, to me, it's I really tried to be objective, but it's very hard to be objective knowing where these guys would go. Um,
Hmm.
and in a way, I kind of look at the Talk Talk discography kind of like the way I look at the first seven Steely Dan albums. I mean,
I knew
none
Steve
of them are
Dan was going to
bad.
make an appearance.
Yeah,
I knew he was going to make an
well,
appearance. Go ahead.
well, and that's but the metaphor here is that none of them are bad. It's just that when
I
you're
know.
trying to rank, you're talking about degrees
No,
in
I get
here.
it.
And to me, um, like the degrees in separation for me between Royal Scam and Katie Light are like very, very small. But if you have to
Minimal.
rank them, you got to put one above the other.
Yeah.
There's a lot about the Talk Talk discography that I feel very similarly, and personally, I'm kind of challenged by. Um, I've I mean, I grew up in the synth pop era. When this album came out, I was 17, and so I kind of from a time standpoint, I lump this album in with OMD, Naked Eyes. Um, there's all those synthy type bands, Flock of Seagulls, just because of the timing of it.
Human
Um,
League. Yeah. Human League. Yeah.
Human League, yeah, as they were hitting big, Heaven 17. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Um, but it's even though it's at the bottom, it's a good record. It's a really good record. I just have to sort of, from a production standpoint, get through the synth poppiness of it, and I'm glad I did because the record was really good. It was rewarding.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Ken's about to have an embolism here, but it's okay. He's freaking out over that. I could see the look on his face when you gave it a number five.
Well, Jim is very knowledgeable about music. Um, Overall, um, his knowledge and tastes are broader than mine. So I have huge respect, for his viewpoints, and it just goes to show that even the people that know so much about music and um,
Here we
you
go.
know in depth and all of that can still be incredibly wrong. So, and
Okay. Okay. He went the
I knew
long
where
way
that was
around.
going.
He went the long way about it, but he did it.
that's
Okay.
okay.
All
That's
right.
okay.
All
I
right.
haven't
Well,
talked about that one yet. So,
okay. Um, my number five is The Party's Over. Um, okay. Again, the album was produced by Colin Thurston, and I failed to mention that all but one album from Talk Talk was produced by Tim Frias Green, um, co-writer and multi-instrumentalist along with Mark Hollis. Uh, the party is over for me. I it's it's good, but there's a lot of repetitiveness in the music in terms of the arrangements, like you know, repeating of Simmons drums fills. You know what I mean? Like very electronic drum fills and stuff like that. Not one, I mean, to me, not one song uh really speaks to me on this album. I don't know why. That's just the way it is for me. And when you do these lists, again, an album has to go has to go at the bottom of the list, right? And to me, it's just the one album that just really doesn't do it for me, overall. I came in a year later in terms of knowing who they were as a band, so but yeah, that's my number five, and I'm waiting for a candle for his head to explode. In
Oh,
terms
no.
of because I know how much you like this album, Ken.
well, um, and I'll be able to verbalize why later on. So go ahead.
Well,
That's fine. No.
again, it's for me, it's the one album that really, in terms of synth pop. I mean, at the time you had Human League with Dare and Don't You Want Me, and Depeche Mode were just sort of coming through, and Tears for Fears had come in with The Hurting, with
Mhm.
Change and Pale Shelter. The party's over for me. It just got, I guess, at the time got lost in the wash kind of thing. It didn't stand out to me in terms of albums to be released at that point, and oof, it doesn't stand the test of time, you know. And I should also mention that Colin Thurston would go on to produce albums for Duran Duran, Rio, the first Duran Duran album, and Rio. But back to Talk Talk, yeah. The party's over for me, number five. Sorry to say, but it's the way it is. All right,
Something's got to be at the bottom.
exactly, exactly. All right, Ken.
Number four, the Spirit of Eden. I like it, obviously, better than Laughing Stock. Um, it's an interesting album between um, Laughing Stock and The Color of Spring. It fits right in there. Um, tonally, it fits. Modally, it fits very well. Um, it's got more form to the songs than Laughing Stock does. Um, it's still a step too far into the experimental stuff for me. I don't. The songs Eden and I Believe in You aren't too bad. They are somewhat melodic. But another interesting thing is in listening to these albums again this week, both Laughing Stock and Spirit of Eden, I was struggling to understand what Hollis was singing, his words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I was kind of, I wanted to be able to hear what the words were to kind of give the songs a little bit more shape, and whatever, but I couldn't, and I think that also negatively affected, how it resonated or didn't with me. So my number four, Spirit of Eden.
I just want to point out something related to the lyrics. I know that I found that I enjoyed, from um, Color of Spring on, I enjoyed these songs a lot more when I was able to look up what the lyrics are. Because even though um, Mark Hollis does provide the lyrics on the albums, and they even had it when they shipped as albums, um, it was very hard to decipher his handwriting. And so even when you bought it brand new, it's like, what? So once things kind of became available online and in like, normal standard Times or Helvetica font, providing that it's accurate, they make a lot more sense. And the sparseness and the poeticness
yeah,
came through and kind of, revealed more about the song. So if people are struggling in trying to figure out what the heck he's singing, I recommend going up and looking the lyrics up on time online. Sorry.
yeah. No, I would agree. I would agree. That was the one thing I'm sitting there listening to Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock, and it's just, what is he saying? I mean, like, what the hell is going on here? It's like I'm straining, and it's like, okay, it shouldn't be this hard. So
Mhm.
but no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. All right, Jim, you're number four.
Number four for me is Laughing Stock from '91. Like Spirit of Eden, it is another six-track effort. And as Ken already kind of compared, it Laughing Stock goes further beyond what Spirit of Eden did. Whereas it's hard to kind of separate the two because there's so many similarities between them. But whereas Spirit of Eden is almost bereft of basic harmonic and melodic structure, Laughing Stock takes that even a step further, where it's almost any structure harmonically or melodically is just gone, and it just seems like it's a completely, improvised piece of music, and nothing's been kind of through composed. But it's a really interesting and engaging listen, to me. But it's not something I turn back to frequently. I just think like I said earlier, I just think it's astounding that the pair of bookends on the Talk Talk career are, they're 180 degrees from one another, about from where they started to where they ended up.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's worth listening to, but as Laurie Anderson once described, this could be difficult listening hour if you don't have something to ground you in what this style of music is. And I'll talk about that a bit more. Let's talk about Spirited Eden. But yeah,
Okay.
Laughing Stock for me is my number four. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 as I was sort of ranking it.
Okay. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Um, My number four, ladies and gentlemen, is Spirit of Eden. And I'll give you the release information. It was released September 12th, 1988, recorded from 11th of May 11th, 1987 to March 11th, 1988, released again through EMI. Playing time of 41 minutes and 30 seconds, again produced by Tim Frias Green. Um, Spirit of Eden for me was just, I mean, there are bands that do gradual progressions in their career in terms of change, like changing of music styles. This was just like a complete left turn from Color of Spring. I do like the fact that as the albums progressed, they went from the heavily electronic, Simmons drums use to more like live instrumentation, organic, or a more organic feel. Uh, I give them props and respect for going in a direction they wanted to go in and forget everyone else. This is what we want to do. I do wonder how much of this was spearheaded by Mark Hollis, and so the rest kind of went along with it. I'm not even going to get into that, but I do like the album overall. It is a challenging listen at first. I will say that. I mean, songs that stand out for me are The Rainbow. Eden is a good track. I had sometimes difficulty deciphering which was harmonica and which was guitar. And sometimes
Hmm.
I noticed I have in my notes here for Eden great guitar harmonica textures. They kind of interwove those two instruments together, like the just like the tracks that they recorded for them. Uh, Sparse but rich percussion on you know on Eden. I also have in my notes drapery of soundscapes in terms of as a backdrop in terms of how they would put things, arrange things. Um, it is a good listen. It is a challenging listen at first, but I give them all respect for going in a direction that they wanted to do and wanted to go in, and the fact that they challenged the record company in terms of no, you if you can't market this, someone go somewhere else. you know. But so again, songs of note for me are The Rainbow, uh, Eden, Desire is a good track as well. I Believe in You. It's a definite departure from The Color of Spring, but it is a really good album. I really do like it.
I'd like to insert at this point, and I meant to say this at the very beginning. Two of the standout aspects of these albums is all the great, fantastic bass lines by Paul Webb.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
And um, and a lot of people don't realize that the guitar work on three albums by Robbie McIntosh,
that's right.
whose name came across in a recent video that we did. when we talked about the Pretenders, and before that was Wings and stuff like that.
That's
So,
right. That's right.
and initially I didn't realize it was Macintosh because of that guitar sound. That's not was a standard sound that I can't think that he used anywhere else with any other artist. So, kudos for Paul and Robbie.
No, no, you're right. And I'll just say too, Paul Webb's bass work is quite prominent on these albums.
Hmm.
Mhm.
The later ones
Right.
too. I mean, he has a very fluid bass style, for me. Very good, very good. Possibly underrated too.
Yes.
In terms of his, in terms of you talk about bass players, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, Ken, you're number three.
Number three, The Color of Spring. Um, this song, I mean, this album is, oh, Jim. Oh, Jim.
Oh, Ken,
The roots are showing. Um, really great album.
how are
Uh,
your roots?
we've got actual songs here.
Hidden, they're hidden.
Even though it does have, the space that we talked about. And plus, it's got excellent organ work by Steve Winwood. Holy cow.
That's
And
right.
um
Yep.
and it and they really use him um to very full effect because in the songs that he plays on, it's very noticeable, it's very powerful, and it's
Oh,
wonderful.
yeah.
This is one of those albums that has both incredible album openers, and album closers. Happiness is Easy. Man, as an opener, that's just killer. Um, the closer, Time It's Time, is just, you know, fantastic. It's perfect closer. And then you've got the other, Life Is What You Make It, Living in Another World. Um, and those two songs, Armando, would probably be the final ass shakers that they would
Yeah,
record for you.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I
I'll just say this. Life is what you make it. It's sort of a slow burn of an ass shaker. Like it's
Sure it
not
is.
as yeah, it's not a fast
It's
tempo.
kind of like a uh tempo wise, it's kind of like a Motown
Yeah,
tempo ass shaker.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay,
Um,
okay.
and I love how uh and this isn't the first time they do it in, but the amazing way in which they weave in and out of minor tonalities and major tonalities. They do that in a very, very interesting and I think non-standard way. Um, anyway, um, and the songs April 5th and Chameleon Day solidly point at Spirit of Eden.
Yeah.
So, I think I read somewhere that this is referred by many as a transitional album between the earlier talk and the more experimental.
I
This
could
is
kind of see that.
I can see that,
Yeah.
because of those two tracks. But yeah, this is a real nice spacey album. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Hmm, okay. Okay. Fair enough. Jim.
Okay, so I started with the first. I went to the last. Now I'm ping-ponging back towards more of the beginning, and I'm going for my number three choice as "It's My Life" from 1983. Um, again, an excellent album. In my ranking of it, I gave it 8.75 out of 10. Um, for me, the side A of this album is just absolute perfection. Dum Dum Girl, Such a Shame. Renee, if people have not heard Renee,
You need to.
it's an experience. Just the way it starts, just so starkly, and has these great crests within the chorus. It's, you know, it's it's kind of a baptismal experience, really, for me. And listening to this song, it's just this amazing wash and fill. And boy, I would really love it if the estate of Mark Hollis allowed Steven Wilson to do a 5-1 or an Atmos mix of this record. I think it would just be the definitive immersive record. Anyway, finishing off on side A, the song "It's My Life." Everyone knows it. It's freaking great.
That was the
Um,
jam.
yeah.
That was the jam.
Side B for me is where things falter, but again, it doesn't. We're talking about degrees here. It's not like it's a major, strikeout. Um, Tomorrow Started, which kicks off side B, and Does Caroline Know, which is the penultimate song on the album. Um, to me, are equal in quality with what's on side A. So that kind of leaves The Last Time, It's You, and Call in the Night Boy as songs to me that just don't have the same heft, whether it's melodically, harmonically, in the arrangement. They just, I wonder if they were remnants of where they kind of started in 82. And um and anyway, the thing about It's My Life is that it is a step forward in the evolution of the band where things are still predominantly electronic, but yet they're experimenting with these electronic sounds here and there. It's not every synth sound being the same. There are elements of acoustic percussion in there, which, distinguish a lot of these songs. Such a Shame, Renee, Does Caroline Know are the three that kind of immediately come to mind with the natural sounds of acoustic percussion, which help distinguish these songs to me as, superior than what kind of came with the Party's Over.
Hmm.
Um, one more comment about Colin the Night Boy. There is not a lot of live recordings out there from a Talk Talk. There are two or three different documents out there from the 1986 tour that were filmed. I think at the Montreux Jazz Festival is one of them, and
Yeah.
then I think there's a BBC recording from the Hammersmith Odeon.
Yeah.
Call in the Night Boy live really works for me. I think it sort of takes it to another place that the studio kind of seems to stilt the spirit of the song, but there's just something that's really magnetic and electric about Call in the Night Boy when they perform it live. So I highly recommend that. I mean, and again, It's My Life. I highly recommend this album. 8.75 out of 10. That's fantastic. And again, like I
Yeah.
said, side A is perfect. So this is um this is not an album that I scoff at or look at with any kind of derision. It's just that the heights that they get to for me are just towering
Hmm.
comparatively.
Hmm.
So that's my
Okay.
take on it.
Valid. All valid points. Okay. My number three, ladies and gentlemen, is Laughing Stock. Released September 16th, 1991. Recorded from September of 1990 to April of 1991. Released to Verve Polydor with a playing time of 43 minutes and 29 seconds. Again, six tracks in total. This is pretty much a continuation of where Spirit of Eden started. Again, you have six pieces of music, extended jams, as it were, and just basically, this is the band left to their own devices in the studio and slowly afterwards coming together and slowly editing together pieces, bits and pieces here and there to formulate musical ideas. Again, props to the band for doing whatever the hell they wanted to do in the studio. Um, was it going to sell? Who knew? Did Mark Hollis and the band really care? I really don't think so. I don't think they did. And you know what? Who gives a shit, really? I mean, it's what they wanted to do, and they did it. I will say I do have, unless I have the lyric sheet in front of me, I have a really hard time deciphering what Mark Hollis is saying vocally. But I don't think that the music overall dealt with the lyrics as much as it was based on atmosphere and mood, in terms of the textures that are on this album. Songs that stand out to me, uh, Merman, uh, Ascension Day, After the Flood. I mean, that's side one. I mean, and New Grass on side two. Again, you have, in terms of just the tracks overall, they're very atmospheric, very sparse in terms of arrangement. Uh, just uh, good, strong bass again that comes through on these tracks. And I really don't think you can pick. I did, aside from me picking out the tracks, I really don't think you can really pick out a track overall. I think you have to listen to this album as with Spirit of Eden as a
Yeah.
whole. You know what I mean? Just sit back with a coffee or a drink. I'm not a drinker, but have a glass of wine, sit back, turn off the lights, and just let your mind go. Because if you try and decipher every little thing that goes on these two albums, you're going to give yourself a stroke. I'm sorry. It's like it's too much. Just let the music wash over you. And in my opinion, you'll be all the better for it. The reason why for me it's number three is because I give, again, I'm giving props to the band for trying something different and going off in a different musical direction. Okay. I do believe that they were signed with the right label, with Verve, Verve being a jazz label. Um, I don't understand why they couldn't promote this album, or like, just give it the push it needed. But that's my number three, Laughing Stock.
So I have a question for you, you good sir. So um you've put Laughing Stock above Spirit of Eden. I'm wondering what it is that you hear in Laughing Stock that distinguishes it, to be higher than Spirit of Eden.
Just the willingness to continue experimenting
Okay.
with textures.
Texture works for me.
I
I think it's
think
very
it's,
apt when talking about those two. Yeah.
yeah. The fact that they again are using guitar and harmonica in terms of blending the two tones together. And to me, I there were times, like on the track After the Flood, there were times where I couldn't decipher which was harmonica and which was guitar. And the fact that they blended those two tones together, I thought that was fantastic. You have to be able to open up your mind and just let your mind, just let it go. Just let it happen. Let the music wash over you, and nothing, not everything has to make sense in terms of, there's not always an answer for for what you're listening to, for what you're hearing. It is what it is. And again, I give him kudos for trying, for going off in this direction, in this field. I mean, the next two, obviously, I mean, they're on the list for a different reason. They're higher on the list for a different reason. But um, I, I like these two albums just for the fact of the experimentation of it. All right.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, if that makes any sense. Um, all right. Number two, Ken.
Okay. My number two and number one um, could be interchangeable. Um, but um, I'll explain when I get to number one why it won out. My number two is It's My Life. To me, this is a perfect album. It's completely sans turd. Um, and part of the reason I like it is for the up-tempo songs. Um, and this is the last album that had multiple, it's mostly up-tempo.
Mhm.
It's less bathed in synthesizers from their debut album, which Jim really likes. Um, but they still used it, um, I think, to very, very good effect. Generally, the album and the songs have more space. And here again, granted, both of these aspects are not quite as much as they would be in, the next album because of their progression. It's just the way their sound progressed. Um, like I said, it would be my number one, except for a specific reason. Um, I remember I bought this album uh, without hearing a single thing. I saw, a new Talk Talk album. I just bought it. And we all have our artists like that. I think Dum Dum Girl is a fantastic opener because it is so different from anything off of their first album that it really gets your attention. With that very sparseness in the way, and yeah, Renee, amazing. And actually, I don't, obviously, since I like it so much, I don't have a problem with any of the songs on side two. Um, I just played the heck out of that back in the day on vinyl, and it's still one of my major go-tos today. Um, I could break down every song, but no need to. I love it.
Fair
It's
enough.
My Life, 1984, my number two.
Thank you very much. All right, Jim.
Before we leave, It's My Life. Any comments, Ken, on the No Doubt cover of the title track?
Eh,
Fair enough.
I
Oh,
mean, generally with covers, um, I usually like when someone does something significantly different with it.
hmm
However, um, the original is so catchy. Probably, to their credit, they did it so much like the original. Otherwise, I don't think it would have been as successful. And
hmm
plus, it's like, hey, how many how many people did that introduce Talk Talk to when
Sure.
they
Yeah.
did
True enough.
a wee bit of research into it? So,
True
uh,
enough.
yeah, glad they did it.
Okay.
Well said.
Fair enough. All right, Jim.
Okay. Ping ponging. Now I'm to their fourth album. My number two is Spirit of Eden, which I give a solid 9 out of 10. My understanding is that Spirit of Eden has kind of become the founding album of a genre called post rock.
Yeah,
Um, as we've kind of talked about, I think I mentioned specifically that it's almost bereft of basic harmonic and melodic structure. However, there are songs within here that are more distinctive to me than, say, Laughing Stock. I'm glad you mentioned those song titles earlier, Armando, because to me, Laughing Stock is just two sides of musical experience.
I get that. I
Of
get
just
that.
like two almost two long tracks.
I get that. I understand that.
And and then even side A of Spirit of Eden, all the songs segue together very, very quietly, but they do all segue. So it's, kind of Dark Side of the Moon ish.
Yeah.
in that manner. Um, this album also, my understanding, and Ken, can you flash up the prop that you brought?
Ken's got props. Okay, you're good. You're good right there.
All right, the On Track series, the book is about Talk Talk. Now, I don't know if
I
it
gotta get
mentions in
that.
there. Yeah, I gotta hover above the buy button on that one a bit more. Does it mention in there explicitly that In a Silent Way was a uh, inspiration for the direction that Hollis went to with Spirit of Eden, or is that just kind of an apocryphal tale? Oh, you're on
You're
mute, brother.
you're muted.
Sorry, keep talking. I'm looking.
Okay. To me, I think this has been mentioned by everyone. Eden is one of the standout tracks on this album. That's the middle track on side one. It's a
Hmm.
very transcendent kind of tune. Just we talked about quite a bit how Mark Hollis's vocals are almost, you know, indecipherable, and that certainly is the case on here. I think what really makes this tune distinctive is that unlike many of the other songs, there's definitive parts to it. And, for me, the parts on this, it kind of starts with this very quiet electric guitar figure that kind of grows and grows and grows over the 4 to 8 bars that it plays, till it kind of just explodes into this kind of transcendent um, peak where the song kind of quiets down again, but then it kind of slowly starts building up into that again, and that motif repeats, I think, 3 or 4 times throughout the song. And again, it's just very, very well done and brings this kind of transcendent nature to the track, and I think kind of anchors the listener into the record that this isn't all just like weird soundscapes with Robbie McIntosh's guitar battling Mark Feltman's harmonica versus um Mark Hollis on the harmonium to try to figure out like what instrument is which, because they all have this very similar space and timbre and color to it. um And it kind of sounds like the way I'm talking about it is that that's a knock on Spirit of Eden, and to me, it's not. This is. Um, I'm not a big post rock guy, but I can appreciate, kind of the growth of music and kind of the
Yeah.
tendrils expanding here and there. Um, if this is the granddaddy, the founding album of it, well done. It's a great place to start. Is this the In a Silent Way of modern rock? Probably. Any luck finding a reference in that, Ken?
It doesn't,
It doesn't. Okay.
not directly.
Uh, yeah. Well, thanks for looking. Um, yeah, Spirit of Eden. It's an experience, and I guess if Party's Over and Laughing Stock are this far apart, you know, It's My Life and, Spirit of Eden are that far apart, which sort of gets you into like where I'm going with my top number one here. But yeah, Spirit of Eden, 9 out of 10, fantastic album. To me, it's more approachable than Laughing Stock. That's why I was kind of curious, Armando, as to your
Yeah.
distinction between the two. But yeah, it's a in the 1,001 albums you should hear in your lifetime, Spirit of Eden is definitely one of them because it is a singular, distinguished experience.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. My number two, ladies and gentlemen, is The Color of Spring. Released February 17th, 1986, recorded in 1985, again released to EMI. Playing time of 45 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, the lead off single from this album that was released in North America was Life's What You Make It. Uh, to me, overall, this album is much more a live album, like acoustically done, like acoustic instruments and live instrumentation, or get more organic. Uh, you could see a shift in the overall in terms of where they were going musically with this album. Um, songs like it starts off with "Happiness is Easy." And my notes have here. There's a lot of space on the recording in terms of the instrumentation. Uh, I Don't Believe in You is another good track. And my notes have your experimentation in guitar tone in the music. So I mean, you could tell that they were moving away from the synth pop realm and going into more live, organic arrangements and stuff and presentation in terms of their music. Life's What You Make It, the lead off single, again, very rhythmic, great piano line that comes in, the repetitive piano line that comes in. Uh, you know, just sparse piano chords too, the overlapping sparse piano chords. Great lead off single. Great lead off single. And um, you can decipher, you can understand what he's saying musically, lyrically, sorry, in terms of the on the track. Other songs to note on the album, April 5th, again, nice piano chords on the intro, great use of organ, again, sparse percussion, atmosphering, and very much establishing mood on this track. Very moody.
Yeah.
You know, Living in Another World is a good track. Again, great bass in organ and mellotron. Work on that. Give It Up is another good track. Really prominent bass and great guitar tone. Great organ. Uh, Chameleon Day is another one. One of the shorter tracks on the album at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, you gotta know too, a good amount of these songs on this album, The Color of Spring, they're very lengthy, like 6 minutes plus. So
Yeah.
they're starting to stretch out musically, right? They're not editing themselves so much, starting with this album in terms of musical ideas. And the album ends with "Time, It's Time." 8 minutes and 14 seconds. In my notes, I have here very rhythmic and percussive, great bass, prominent drums, and atmospheric passages like with keyboards and stuff. Fantastic album. Fantastic album. Again, a good sign as to where they were going musically. To me, this was where they started to branch out and experiment. And whether they came up with a hit, they really didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? So, and obviously, EMI choosing, Life's What You Make It as a single, clocking in at 4 minutes and 29 seconds. I mean, it was the obvious single for the album at the time. But fantastic, fantastic. If you want a good bridge between Talk Talk, via It's My Life and going into the more jazzier ambient music, like this is the album for you. This is the rite of passage, let's say, for that. So
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, number two for me is Color of Spring. All right. We're down to the number one.
So I think we know where I'm going.
Oh, I think so.
Do enlighten us. Do
Tell
enlighten
us,
us.
tell us how you got there, Mr. Cheshire.
Okay, how I got there. The party's over 1982. The years of 1982 and 83, there were a little over a dozen albums that um, really took me. Party's Over, The Hurting, Tears for Fears, two albums by The Fix, the debut album from Naked Eyes, U2's War, two XTC albums, Split Ends, Time and Tide, Duran Duran's Rio, Wall of Voodoo, Call of the West, The English Beat, Special Beat Service, and The Jam with the Gift are the
Just to
primary.
name a few. Go
Just
on.
to
Just a
name a few.
few.
Yeah.
So all of these albums are clumped together in one particular part of my brain. And part of it, aside from earlier on with Elvis Costello kind of introducing me to, what I refer to now as classic alternative. This is the period, like y'all have mentioned, of, the synth pop and whatever. Um, to me, these albums, um, and The Party's Over, yes, synth pop, but to me, they did it so much better than those other bands that y'all have mentioned. You know, I, you mentioned, Heaven 17 and ABC and all of those never, those never did anything for me. Um, with Talk Talk, they were one of the bands that used all these synthesizers, because I don't think there's any guitar credited for this album. But anyway, um, use the synthesizers the way that um, Tears for Fears would do, um, in a very similar way that an orchestra uses individual instruments.
For
They would
instance,
layer the synthesizers with different textures, timbres, tones, specific, little bitty bits and pieces, little motifs, and whatever. Uh, and here again, man, Party's Over, and those bass lines that Paul Webb is playing on that fretless
mhm.
bass is just absolutely unbelievable. Um, so yeah, it is indicative of 1982, but it's the top of 1982 for me. So the nostalgia aspect of my love for this album cannot be denied. And that is the element that um, takes it above number two, is because it played a very important part of my musical listening at that time, because that was my entry point, not the second album. Um, I like um, the up tempo songs, and this album is almost all up tempo songs. And as I mentioned, the instruments that they do use, all the electronics, mimic a symphonic structure like an orchestra does. And you do have you heard the news and Candy that points to where they would go on It's My Life. Those are expanded a little bit more. Those are a little bit open sonically, you know. So each one of these albums at least has one or two songs that are pointing to where they're going next. So Jim, your question is, you were wondering if there's some tracks on It's My Life that was maybe left over from The Party's Over period.
Mhm.
And it could be. I'm going to have to dig into that book and find out. But to me, like I said, other than the fact that this was an entry point for me and what was going on in my life and how much I listened to it, um, uh, influences where it falls on this list, whether it would be number one or number two. But I
Mhm.
just think it does what was going on in 82 so much better than all those others. Um, because generally, I can say generally, it sounds weird for me to say this, considering that list of albums. I'm not a really big synth pop fan, you know.
Yeah, I know you're not. I know you're
But
not.
I'm just very, very picky, I guess.
Not
I
you.
never heard the term shoegaze until last year. So, there's all these other little subgenres that I'm completely ignorant about. But anyway, I've yammered too long.
No,
My
you're
number
fine.
one is the party's over.
Okay.
And another interest, the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up.
Go
Interesting
on.
is considering so many of these songs are upbeat and peppy, the subject matter is quite dark if you listen to the words. So you've got this juxtaposition between really peppy, up-tempo music and rather dark lyrics
Hmm.
in a different way from Steely Dan, but still the same thing, in a way.
Fair enough.
So Ken, do I have it right that your order is from top to bottom, is it all the order in which the albums were released?
That's correct.
That is correct. Okay, I did pick that up. Gotcha.
That's what
See,
makes
I
it
did.
so easy for
See,
me.
I didn't even pick it up. I didn't even pick it up. I didn't even pick it up. Okay, I'll give my opinion in 1 minute. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah.
1 minute? Who do you think I am?
Sorry, in the next 10 minutes. Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead. And
Okay,
that's being
ping
generous.
pong, ping pong. Yeah. All right. I'm dropping right in the middle. Their third album, to me, The Color of Spring, not only is it the best Talk Talk album, but it was also one of my absolute no-brainer picks for the 31 Perfect Album series that we did. Um, to me, this is just an exquisite kind of melding of the organic and the electronic. And they just each bolster and support the other so that the kind of the whole is greater than the sum of its parts musically. Just even thinking about the opening track, Happiness is Easy. Um, it starts with these percussion lines going, and I think the first thing you hear that's not a percussion instrument is I'm just trying to hear the song in my head is this little bass fill that comes in, and then you've got, or maybe it's a very low guitar, um, and then you've got these piano chords that start to stab in this gentle little like mellotron or organ in the background, and things just kind of keep building and assembling on one another, a mix of organic percussion and say electric guitar or mellotron or something that's artificial. And again, it's just kind of keeps building and breathing and expanding. um, you get a children's choir that kind of comes in that is almost like I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but it kind of calms the track down because there's all this ascension that's going on between the instruments and with like the synth or mellotron passages that keeps escalating in the chords and the keys, and it just sort of brings everything down and calms it. Then this little electric guitar solo happens after the children's choir, and again it's sort of like it's a chance for you to exhale and really, take all the music in. I'm going to contrast that with the final track on the album, Time It's Time, where one of the, unlike the children's choir that kind of kicks off the album, now you've got a full on like adult church, choir that sounds like, dozens and dozens of people with these very, wordless, vocals going on, that really just sort of gives kind of a spiritual gravitas to the record. And it's an amazing bookend between what's happening in the beginning with the children's choir of Happiness is Easy to Time It's Time. It's almost like the whole album is like an arc of maturity to get you from the childlike and wonder of the beginning to this sort of heavy but affirming Time It's Time at the end. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I love this album so much is that it the bookend quality of making an entire record and having it be one unit that you can hear and enjoy. That's I find that that's really important to me, and just the fact that it does it so subtly on this album, it's almost like you're peeling an onion. There's more and more and more that you find here that just really just makes it amazing. So just a couple other comments on this record. April 15th and Chameleon Day, absolute palate cleansers that are a direct antecedent to Spirit of Eden. Um, Give It Up and Life's What You Make It, kind of the clear pop hits on this record. Um, but and then that leaves the last two songs to kind of talk about in a pair to me, which is I Don't Believe in You and Living in Another World. These are both outstanding, outstanding tracks. I Don't Believe in You starts amazingly on the downbeat transition from Happiness is Easy, but yet the time of the song changes, and it's kind of this great head fake where all of a sudden you're starting track two and it's right on the downbeat of track one, but then there's like the silence that happens as the rhythm kind of reestablishes itself. And it's just this wonderfully immersive way to sort of hook you into what's happening. The percussion, Morris Pert gets, major props from me for his very sensitive, delicate percussion work on this whole album.
Did you
Um,
just do a
Ken,
raise the roof?
because Morris Pert freaking deserves it, just like Mark Feltman, just like
Good
Steve
Lord.
Winwood, just like Robbie McIntosh. I mean, this I Don't Believe in You is a raise the roof kind of song for me.
Okay.
Ken, you talked about McIntosh's solo, I think, a little bit on the song, just being so out, but boy, is it
Yeah.
effective and just perfect for what's required here. Um, Steve Winwood's playing on Living in Another World just sort of takes it to these new heights. And again, when you've got Mark Feltman's harmonica work kind of going right with it in the solo sections, there's a single mix out there of Living in Another World, which to me is absolutely abysmal. Oh my God, I can't believe they released that. It just destroys the whole structure and frame of the song. It's just it's like screwing with the Sistine Chapel. It's like you ignorant sluts. How could you even think about doing such a thing? Um, but yeah, I mean, I could just go on and on and on and just repeat myself, falling over myself about how glorious this album is to me. When I first heard it from a friend of mine. Um, Listening to it in a cassette in the car as we were driving somewhere, and even from crappy little speakers in a Toyota, I could tell that this thing was just a monster. And this was one of I immediately seeked it out on an LP. It was one of the first CDs that I purchased as well. Um, I just think this is a glorious, glorious album. And so that's the end of the editorializing. I do want to point out that all of us have picked among the five albums different albums of our number one. So it speaks to the kind of variety within the Talk Talk discography, and how different people approach music. And I that I'm
Was
done.
this
See,
your
Armando, it was not going to be a minute.
was this your entry
Uh,
point?
From an album standpoint, yes. I mean, I had
There you
heard
go.
"It's My Life" on the radio, and I had heard
Mm,
"Talk Talk" on the radio, but I had never heard an album proper, and
Okay.
I was just floored.
okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for that brief minute. Um,
I tried to tell you. I
I
tried.
know, I know, I know. I should have listened to you. No, we all have valid points. You all have valid points as to why we did our listing. My number one, ladies and gentlemen, big surprise. It's My Life, released February 13th, 1984, recorded in 1983 again for EMI. Playing time of 43 minutes and 13 seconds. To me, this is the album where they moved away from still synth pop, but a lot more song structure as opposed to the previous album. A lot less Simmons drums fills. That really got me on that. for the previous album, containing the major hit "It's My Life" on the end of side one, and some U.S. pressings on of vinyl of the vinyl release had the extended mix of that, and that track
Really?
was, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that track was the jam. Okay, you, for me, as a 14-year-old listening to this, well, I was still 13 at the time. Um, just an amazing piece of work. Very atmospheric synths on that one track, even and fantastic bass work. First of all, from Paul Webb on the entire album. It starts off with Dum Dum Girl." To me, Pop Confection. For what they were doing. Such a Shame is another good track. Renee, I mean, forget about it. I'm sorry. A very emotional track for me. It's My Life. I gotta tell you, trying to put this list together, this was the one track that kept going through my head, you know, as I was doing my other stuff. Like I was in the shower the other morning, and I kept hearing, the keyboard passages, in the verses of this, and I kept remembering the video for it. And the video, if you guys out there watching know, it's basically a wildlife video,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Yep.
of animals dealing in their daily existence, doing what they have to do to survive. With shots of Mark Hollis in there and stuff. But to me, it's a very emotional song in terms of the arrangement, in terms of the buildup of the drums, of the choruses. Ass shaker of a track, ass shaker of a bass line. It gets you moving. It gets you moving. And in terms of the rest of the album, it's pretty much the same way for me. This is where they moved away from relying extensively or exclusively on synths and drum machines, and they were moving towards a more organic sound, live sound. Yes, they were using Simmons drums, but they didn't inundate the album with it, to my ears. This is more where more song structure was coming into play, and I think it's fantastic. And on a personal note, my sister Carm, who we lost, this was her. "It's My Life" was her favorite song. So when
Nice.
I hear the song, I think of Carmela. "It's My Life," number one on my list.
And Jim, there's at least a couple of albums out there of extended mixes and remixes.
Yes.
I recommend giving it a try. Some of them are really quite good.
Oh yeah. The what do you call it? The collection machine within Talk Talk has been very strong.
Sure.
I think there's one called Rarities, A sides, B
B-sides,
sides.
B-sides, yeah.
Yeah. That's got a whole bunch of different like 12-inch mixes and
Yeah.
things that were B sides only. John Cope is one that kind of
Mhm.
sticks to my mind. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, the one thing I wanted to point out about the song "It's My Life" is the brilliant way that this song just progresses. You've got your standard verse structure, and then obviously you've got your power hook chorus. But the thing that I really delight in this song, and just thinking about the mechanics of it, is the pre-chorus.
Yeah,
That is this
it's a
perfect hook
it, it's a
between the two.
it's a build. It builds. It's a perfect
Yep.
run up to the chorus.
Yeah.
And to me, you have the verse, the build up, the pre-chorus, the build up, and the chorus just explodes when it
Yeah.
happens, and because of the drum fill. And that's the hook. That's what makes that song. All those elements together,
Yeah.
strategically placed together, put together in that order. It's there. That's
Yeah.
it.
And that just came to me, Armando, as you mentioned, kind of that keyboard line that you said was that kept
Yeah, the,
reoccurring in your mind,
to me,
because
it's
that's very, you know.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, because that is as strong as an element of the pre-chorus as it is the chorus yourself. I mean, you're right that that electronic drum fill is the thing that launches you into the chorus, but that keyboard line hook is there in the pre-chorus as well.
It's when he sings the lyric, funny how I find myself in love with you. If I could find my reasoning, that those it's
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
it's very those that synth passage to me is very ethereal,
Hmm.
and you could sort of see yourself just sitting outside having a coffee in the morning and just hearing that line, that synth line come into your mind, and it takes you away, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not to be corny, I already screwed myself up on this episode for that, but with I get emotional. I'm sorry, I really do. But yeah, I do believe that It's My Life was their most popular album. In terms of album sales, it was their zenith um, over the years. So,
And
but all right, ladies and gentlemen, before I leave, do we have anything else to add?
No, if you haven't, yeah, if y'all haven't listened to Talk Talk, give it a shot.
you need to.
Only 5 albums with a very broad spectrum. Good chance you'll find something you like.
It,
Absolutely.
if there was ever a band out there that went through a huge musical arc from one end
Hmm.
of the spectrum to another, Talk Talk is that band for me, you know. So, all right,
Around the
ladies and
top.
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and
Just
gentlemen. Go
just
ahead.
hang on. Two little things.
Yeah.
We mentioned before, or there's a few live recordings out there from 1986 of Talk Talk in Montreux, and then from London. Definitely worth seeking out.
Go
It's
on
audio
YouTube.
and video. Um, it's they did not tour the States in '86, which is a darn shame, because I know I would have loved to have seen them perform
Hmm.
these tracks live. Um, the other thing I'll comment is, we talked about the broad swath from their first album to the last, and I was trying to think about any artist that kind of has that same arc, where they're just so diametrically opposite where they ended up versus where they started. And the only maybe you guys have another artist that is similar in comparison, but like, to me, the only other band or artist I can think of with that wild an arc is Miles Davis. Um, where he ended up with, Bitches Brew and On the Corner, and then the stuff in the very late '80s, early '90s. You know, way different from where he started. And do you guys have any other artists on top of mind that has that radical a departure?
I'd have to think about it.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about it because yeah. Because in the case of Talk Talk, to me, yes, you can see the progression from album to album, but it's when it happened, it was still such a radical turn for me,
Yeah,
from Color of Spring to Spring. I'm having a brain fart, but from Color of Spring onward, it was such a radical departure for me
yeah.
that yeah. So I'd have to think about that one.
I think if I were to take Paul Weller from the
Mm,
beginning of Jam to the end of Style Council, I think that would be,
that's yeah, it's pretty far.
because when Style Council, by the time they got to the end, it was just this weird disco, you know, electronic jam crap.
Well, there's a definite difference between
Hmm.
Town Called Malice and what they did with Town Council near the end. Yeah,
Oh, sure.
I could say that.
Yeah. Not to knock Town Called Malice. It's one of
No.
the greatest bass
Excellent.
lines on
Yeah.
Oh
earth.
yeah. Oh yeah. Let's
For the
not
whole
even go.
song. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to
Yeah.
go there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Ranking the albums of Talk Talk. Please put down in the comments below what your ranking is. Maybe it aligns with ours. Maybe we miss the boat altogether. Maybe you have no idea what we're talking about. So please let us know your rankings of these albums and your views on the band Talk Talk. And Mark Hollis as a musician overall, because unfortunately we did lose him in 2019. Quite an unfortunate loss. And again, please put down your comments below. Do click like and subscribe, and do hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that we've got coming up. And just a little quick note. By the time this episode would air, you will have undoubtedly have seen the series tripping through the 70s and running back through the 80s. And I want to personally thank everybody who has been watching those episodes and commenting on them and giving us your rankings for those episodes and those songs. We enjoy putting them together and having you watch them and just chiming in. And I know for a fact that it uh, really had a tremendous effect on Bill. He loved being a part of those two sets of series, and we are going to be doing more in the future. So please stay tuned for those. Um, Again, I want to thank Jim and Ken for joining me on this uh, short episode of ranking the albums of Talk Talk, and as a joke, of course. And we will be back with more episodes as quickly as we can put them together for you and get them out to you. All right. Again, click like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves and one another. Bye for now.